This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN, who for years have delivered humanized privacy and security solutions to safeguard your data and privacy online. Virtually travel the world, browse privately by encrypting your internet activity, block ads and malware that get in your way, and much more thanks to their easy-to-use tools. Plus, get an extra 4 months when you sign up using offer code SKILLUP at checkout. More details after the video. Gamers, most of the time this show goes out just minutes after the biggest news of the week breaks, but not this time, because just minutes before we were about to lock down the edit, Rockstar made a big announcement. They sacked 40 people. Oh, and they also delayed GTA 6. I guess we should talk about that first. Yes, it's true. GTA 6 has officially been delayed yet again, since it was initially announced for a 2025 release before being delayed until May of next year. Now the game has been delayed until November 19th, 2026, which funnily enough is actually prime Call of Duty territory. So it'd be really interesting to see if Microsoft has the cojones to stick to their schedule or launch a little earlier to give GTA some breathing room. The announcement came as part of Take-Two's Q2 earnings call, where CEO Strauss Zelnick said in prepared remarks that the delay would be, quote, giving the team some additional time to finish the game with the high level of polish players expect and deserve. Rockstar has our full support, of course, and we are confident they will deliver an unrivaled blockbuster entertainment experience, end quote. During the QA component of the earnings call, Zelnick addressed a question regarding what drove motivations for the delay, saying, quote, the drivers are a desire to deliver as perfect an entertainment experience as we possibly can and to try to live up to consumers' extraordinary expectations and then exceed those expectations. It's always painful when we move a date. We have done so occasionally in the past and we've never regretted it. In retrospect, I would like to point out that we have certain competitors that in the event where more polish was required and it required slipping a date, they chose not to slip the date and they did so at their peril, end quote. You're obviously going to be talking about any publisher since they've all shipped stuff prior to it being ready, including Take-Two themselves. Let's not forget the horrendous state of the GTA remasters, but it was a bit funny to see CD Projekt Red reply to the official Rockstar delay announcement tweet by quote tweeting their own statement from back in 2020, no more delays are happening. The timing of this announcement is very, very convenient for Rockstar, since they're no doubt keen to pull attention away from another big story this week, allegations of union busting. This news comes via Bloomberg, who reported that a few days ago, Rockstar Games had fired between 30 and 40 people across a number of offices in the UK and Canada. The affected workers were attempting to organize a new union within Rockstar and were part of a, quote, private trade union group on Discord, end quote. That's according to the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain. That naturally leads to a lot of speculation that these workers were fired for no other reason than their desire to unionize. President of the IWGB, Alex Marshall, didn't mince words in his response, saying, quote, Rockstar has just carried out one of the most blatant and ruthless acts of union busting in the history of the games industry. This flagrant contempt for the law and for the lives of the workers who bring in their billions is an insult to their fans and the global industry. The Rockstar Union remains undeterred. They will keep organizing for respect and better conditions whilst continuing to pour their blood, sweat, and creativity into games that are loved by millions. The IWGB will pursue every legal claim possible to ensure our members are reinstated and receive interim relief, end quote. The official IWGB Twitter account followed up by saying, quote, we won't back down and we're not scared. We will fight for every member to be reinstated, end quote. To summarily sack that many people is a really big move, and to do so in the UK is an even bigger move, given that the UK has very, very strict anti-union busting laws. That immediately threw open the question, why the hell did Rockstar do this? And if it is union busting, how the hell did they think they could get away with it? Take-Two Director of Communications Alex Lewis issued a statement on Rockstar's behalf saying that the firings were, quote, for gross misconduct and for no other reason. We will fully support Rockstar's ambitions and approach, end quote. That's all they said on the matter at the beginning, and obviously that doesn't tell us anything at all. Subsequent reporting from Bloomberg provides more detail, with Rockstar alleging that the workers were sacked for sharing confidential information. In a statement to Bloomberg, Rockstar said, quote, last week we took action against a small number of individuals who were found to be distributing and discussing confidential information in a public forum, a violation of our company policies. This was in no way related to people's right to join or engage in union activities, end quote. Bloomberg would go on to detail that all of the affected workers were part of a private Discord where they were discussing unionization, and that union organizers were also in the same Discord, despite the fact that they were not employees of Rockstar. And this is where things get tricky, because we have absolutely no idea what information was shared in that Discord, but if so much as one cheeky screenshot or one reference to an unannounced character or a scenario or anything present in the game was discussed, then technically that would be sharing of confidential information to an outside party. Having said that, we don't know if that information, whatever it might be, was shared by one person or all 40? Did just like one guy quote a line of NPC dialogue and then 40 other people lose their jobs over that? If that's the case, then that's some fucking bullshit. But as I said, we just don't know at this point, so it wouldn't be fair to speculate. The union isn't backing down though, it seems. The union president Alex Marshall had this to say, quote, "Rockstar is afraid of hardworking staff privately discussing exercising their rights for a fairer workplace and a collective voice. Management are showing they don't care about delays to GTA 6, and they're prioritizing union busting by targeting the very people who make the game," end quote. So that's literally all we know about this. This could well be union busting on some level, but without knowing any of the details, we can't say for sure. The union has vowed to fight on, and 40 people are now out of the job, and they're surely going to make their feelings known at some point. I'm sure we'll hear more about this story very soon, so stay tuned. More studio drama now, and it's another round of layoffs at the indie studio Heart Machine, developers of the Hyperlight games, and it sadly comes just weeks before the launch of their next game, Possessors. Affected employees include their producer, senior gameplay designer, senior animator, and VFX artist. Heart Machine's community and PR manager Yi Zhang posted a video confirming the news, saying, quote, "Heart Machine has just laid off a bunch more people effective immediately, and by the time Possessor comes out on November 11th, I don't know if anyone who worked on the game will even be at the company anymore. That's game dev," end quote. Note that this is the third round of layoffs for the studio in just 12 months. One was prior to the launch of their ill-received co-op roguelike Hyperlight Breaker in November of last year, and the second was following its end of development announcement just last month. In response to a Steam thread discussing the news, the existing team is still urging people to pick up the game if they're interested, assuring that profits from the game's sales would go to the right people. A full statement from Alex Preston, Heart Machine's creative and design director, reads, quote, "All team members on Possessor who are scheduled to receive profit share on the title, regardless of if they no longer work here or remain at the studio, will still receive it," end quote. Tyler Hutchinson, the studio's narrative director, followed up by saying, quote, "As a developer who is slated for layoff, please buy this game," end quote. He goes on to say that buying and playing the game celebrates the talents of those who contributed, that the game selling well also bodes well for the future prospects of laid off team members, and that there's no need to act in defiance of their publisher Devolver Digital, as they bear no responsibility for the layoffs. And yeah, it is important to remember that while many layoffs we report are the result of greedy upper management, sometimes it's just a simple case of studios running out of money. I imagine that was sadly the case here with Heart Machine. Their big bet Hyperlight Breaker didn't make the best first impression when it released into early access last year, lacking the defining characteristics this studio is known for. And sadly, Possessors, the game that does appear to have that sort of stuff, is arriving just a little bit too late. Can't imagine there are many people left over at Heart Machine, so here's hoping that Possessors does well enough for them that the studio can stay afloat. One company not having any financial woes is Nintendo. They released their half-yearly earnings report, and they are happy to relay that they've sold 10.36 million Switch 2 consoles in 4 months, with Nintendo raising their full-year forecast to 19 million units, up from 15 million. Nintendo boss Shuntaro Furukawa says, quote, "Sales of Nintendo Switch 2 are growing at the fastest rate in the history of our dedicated video game platforms," end quote. "And yet, we are all being told day in, day out that game consoles are dead and we should all be cloud streaming Skyrim on our refrigerator displays. Give me a fucking break." The report indicates that over 20.62 million Switch 2 games have been sold to date, with 9.57 million of those being Mario Kart World. In fact, over 92% of all Switch 2 users own the game, but I suppose that's not surprising since you could get it bundled with the console. Meanwhile, the original Nintendo Switch has now sold over 154 million units as of the 20th of September this year. It's now in line with the Nintendo DS, which was previously the company's best-selling console of all time. But can I install Steam and Microsoft Copilot on my Switch 2? No? Why would I want it then? That is so antiquated. I'm just gonna use that every time now, by the way. Like every time Sony or Nintendo declare record profits or console sales, I'm just gonna be like, those are some seriously antiquated numbers. Speaking of antiquated but unnervingly well preserved, Strauss Zelnick. The Take-Two boss had some interesting things to say on the shortcomings of AI usage at a technology summit hosted by CNBC. Here's what he had to say, quote, "We have to protect our intellectual property, but more than that, we have to be mindful of others. If you create intellectual property with AI, it's not protectable. There's no creativity that can exist by definition in any AI model because it's data-driven. Could we push a button tomorrow and create an equivalent to the Grand Theft Auto marketing plan? The answer is no. A, you can't do that yet, and B, I'm of a view that you wouldn't end up with anything very good. You'd end up with something pretty derivative," end quote. The biggest news there is that Grand Theft Auto 6 apparently has a marketing plan. That's news to me. I thought they were just going to shadow drop the game and immediately sell like 300 million copies. In a talk with the Paley Center for Media, Zelnick echoed this sentiment, saying, quote, "Will it create a genius? No. Will it create hits? No. It's a bunch of data with a bunch of computers with a language model attached, end quote. If it sounds like he's making a little too much sense, then don't worry, he's not finished. He also had this to say, quote, "It will not reduce employment, it will increase employment. Technology always increases productivity, which in turn increases GDP, which in turn increases employment," end quote. Ah, yes, the trickle-down theory of AI productivity. I'm sure that is exactly how it is going to work. Hell, it was just this week that Coke unveiled their absolutely fucking shit-tier AI slop Christmas commercial, and they had the audacity to boast that they used fewer people than ever before to make it. That is the Christmas spirit right there, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope that Pepsi just steal it and paste their logo on instead, because that would be the perfect representation of how vapid and disposable all of this shit is. Sticking with the AI stuff a little longer, one of the many issues surrounding it is the way it often trains itself on content without the creator's consent, something that AI image software Sora appears to be doing. The Content Overseas Distribution Association, or CODA, who represents companies such as Square Enix and Bandai Namco, has submitted a request to OpenAI, the company behind Sora, asking them to please stop doing that. Their specific requests are as follows, quote, "In the operation of Sora 2, CODA requests that its members' content is not used for machine learning without their permission, and that OpenAI responds sincerely to claims and inquiries from CODA member companies regarding copyright infringement related to Sora 2's outputs," end quote. I mean, yeah, obviously, like, I personally don't want AI to like not exist at all, but as an example, I haven't been able to use more than 3 to 5 seconds of a licensed song in a single YouTube video for my entire decade on YouTube, because the music companies would claim 100% of my video's revenue if I did that. And yet somehow these AI platforms get to steal humanity's collective knowledge and all of its IP so that I can then make clips of Mario robbing a convenience store, and there's no legal repercussion for them doing that. Personally, I hope these companies get sued into oblivion for their obvious IP theft, because this truly is the greatest IP heist in history. Some lightning round stuff now, and the fighting game developer SNK has announced an exorbitant $4.1 million prize pool for its in-house tournament in 2026, the same amount as their tournament from last year. For reference, that prize pool is more than double the annual prize pool for Capcom's Street Fighter 6 tournaments, arguably the biggest fighting game in the world. Meanwhile, Bandai Namco's Tekken World Tour has a prize pool of just $300,000 for its current tournament, and the official Mortal Kombat 1 tournament from Warner Brothers has a prize pool of just $200,000. It's very strange considering that SNK's most recent game released this year, Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, was by most public accounts a bit of a flop despite a huge marketing spend, with a peak concurrent player count on Steam of just 188 players at the time of writing. I mean, where are they getting all the money to do this? For a second time? Oh, right. SNK was privately acquired by the Saudis back in 2023. That explains it. Speaking of which, a number of major Sims 4 content creators have recently left the EA Creator Network due to the Saudi acquisition. YouTuber Little Simsy has over 2.1 million subscribers and wrote a community post saying, quote, "It's my hope that pressure from creators and the community might encourage EA's leadership to reconsider the long-term impact of this sale and to preserve the values that have made The Sims so beloved. Under this new ownership, I feel I cannot maintain a direct association to the company," end quote. Following in her footsteps are other creators such as Vixella, James Turner, Plumbella, and Devin Pumpkin. There's no word yet on what impact this acquisition will have on EA's creative freedom or culture, but it's probably nothing good. So I can certainly understand why these content creators don't want to continue having such a close association to EA given its new ownership. For the last year, Nintendo has been locked in a lawsuit against a streamer who live streamed multiple pirated and leaked titles ahead of their release and shared various emulators. A man so unafraid of Nintendo's threats that he told the company, quote, "You might run a corporation, I run the streets," end quote. According to GameFile, he's also reportedly said, quote, "I got more bananas than chimpanzees and I got 10 addresses," end quote, in response to Nintendo attempting to serve him the lawsuit at multiple addresses. Well, they finally got him. Nintendo won the suit and requested $17,500 in damages for copyright infringement, which is honestly not very much money, as I'm sure Nintendo would have spent more than that on just the lawyers required to draft and serve the summons. I think this guy lost the court case, but may have won the war. The case that Nintendo didn't win was the one surrounding their push to patent the monster capture mechanic in Japan, filed amidst their ongoing Pal World lawsuit. According to GamesFrey, the rejection came after a third-party submission of prior art from titles including Monster Hunter, Ark, Craftopia, and even Pokemon Go that demonstrated that the company's, quote, "claimed technique lacked an inventive step," end quote. Do note, however, this follows Nintendo successfully obtaining 2 patents in the US in September this year relating to, quote, "summoning a character and letting it fight another," end quote. Absolutely absurd, though it seems as though that patent is also being re-examined, thank God. This news comes again from GamesFray, who report that the US Patent Office are reopening consideration for the patent because of 2 previously published patent applications, one from Konami filed back in 2002, the other Nintendo's own from 2019. While a re-examination doesn't mean the patent will get revoked, it's certainly a possibility, so here's hoping. Hey, imagine if you could just vote to have the worst microtransactions removed from your favorite game. Well, believe it or not, if you're a RuneScape player, you can do just that right now, as developer Jagex announced a vote that hopes to eliminate its most egregious microtransactions. The poll was slated to run until the 11th of November and is seeking 100,000 votes to pass a proposal for the removal of various things, such as a treasure hunter, a daily activity in which players could use earned or purchased keys to open chests and get random items, a feature so contentious that the poll has already soared past the 100,000 votes required. Jagex says, quote, "Not only does this represent a significant reduction in MTX offerings, but it also represents a move to an integrity-led future for RuneScape. While the systems have been a major part of how we fund the game historically, this has come at the cost of something precious, the integrity of our game," end quote. The developer has an established history of polling its community to decide on major changes to the game, and that seems to be working very much in their favor, with old school RuneScape currently being one of the biggest MMOs you can play right now. Will Blizzard conduct a similar poll? I think we have more chance of Molten Core freezing over than that. Embark says Arc Raiders will prioritize visual identity over novelty cosmetics, according to an interview with PC Games N. The game's design director, Vidigal Watson, says, quote, "We're pretty protective of making sure that anything that goes into the game fits within the visual identity, fits within the tone, fits within the setting. We would never say make a Santa Claus outfit, but we may make something that is of our own tone and our own aesthetic that evokes Santa Claus," end quote. See, that's how Destiny used to do it, but next season we're getting actual Star Wars skins. Count me out of that stuff, thanks very much. Some quick sales milestones to top things off. Dispatch, the episodic superhero comedy drama from former Telltale developers, has sold 1 million copies in just 10 days. Well deserved, I think. I played episode 1 of this and absolutely loved it, and Austin had really nice things to say about it in his review. Notably, he only played up to episode 4 before that review went live, but episodes 5 and 6 just released this week, and he says he's very much looking forward to checking them out. I am as well. Not for nothing, but we also have the game's director joining us for this week's episode of the Friends Per Second podcast. We chat about the phenomenal success of the game, what it was like to rope in YouTube talent like Moist Critical and Jacksepticeye, and we try to get him to commit to a sequel. Were we successful? Find out by hitting the subscribe button and dinging that notification bell so you'll know the minute that video goes live. Pivoting back to Arc Raiders for a moment, last week it hit the ground running with over 264,000 peak concurrent players on Steam, but that number just kept rising every day. Eventually it reached a peak concurrent player count of over 350,000 players. No sales figures have been released yet, but with those numbers and with a 90% very positive rating with over 25,000 user reviews, I imagine Embark is feeling pretty chuffed at this result. One last bit of studio news now. Fantastic Pixel Castle, the studio helmed by Greg Street of Blizzard fame, who had hoped to make the next big MMORPG, is officially closing shop. Seemed like only a matter of time after NetEase pulled funding for the project in early October, and the studio scrambled to try and find another publisher, but no dice it seems. Street took to LinkedIn to announce the news, quote, "Fantastic Pixel Castle will close its doors on November 17th. While there is still a chance we can secure funding after that date, it will depend on how much of the team remains. While we'd love to make our game our first priority is to help our developers find employment, whether that's at indie studio Fantastic Pixel Castle 2.0 or at many of the other fine and hopefully stable game and tech companies out there," end quote. Another MMO prospect bites the dust. But hey, apparently Guild Wars 2 is in pretty good shape right now, at least according to Austin, who just uploaded his annual expansion review. You'll find a link to that below the like button. You know what else you'll find below the like button? A link to our website, thisweekinvideogames.com. It is a fully staffed, fully independent outlet that delivers you daily news, reviews, previews, columns, and op-eds. All of it is 100% ad-free, with the added cherry of no clickbait, no SEO slop, and no AI written articles. It is 100% reader funded, which means that even if you're signed up as just a free member, you are never going to see a single ad pop up or otherwise. Just good, clean daily coverage that keeps you up to date with what's going on and helps you go deeper than we have time for in this weekly roundup. Sign up for free or become a paid supporter for even more benefits like exclusive newsletters or features. Visit thisweekinvideogames.com. And now, back to the video. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, by far and away the most exciting one for me is Warhammer Survivors, a Vampire Survivors style reverse bullet hell adaptation of both the 40k and Age of Sigmar variants of the IP, developed by bolt gun developer Auric Digital, in partnership with the original Vampire Survivors developer turned publisher Ponkel. If there's one thing you need to know about 40k, it's that it involves space marines gunning down endless swarms of enemies, so it is a match made in heaven for this genre if you ask me. This one's slated for sometime in 2026, Steam only for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if it comes to everything else too. Meanwhile, Brandon Green, aka PlayerUnknown, aka the guy who made PUBG, has announced a release date for his new procedurally generated hardcore survival game called Go Way Back. This one hits early access on November 20th on Steam. Speaking of Go Way Back, let's go all the way back to 2020 to remember a little COVID-era defining video game called Animal Crossing New Horizons. Remember that one? Nintendo did. They announced a Switch 2 upgrade for this one coming on January 15th next year, which will be a paid upgrade with improved visuals and game chat support, but it's also launching alongside a free major 3.0 update for the game. I do not want to think about how many weeds I have on my island right now. And finally, Routine is a promising looking new sci-fi game being published by Raw Fury. Imagine a more action-oriented alien isolation with the analog space aesthetic turned up to 11, and you get the gist. They've announced a December 4th release date for this one. One delay announcement this week, and it's our radar pick from a little while ago, Unbeatable. It was meant to come out like tomorrow. Due to a last-minute quality assurance issue, the game's had to be delayed. Apparently, the issue was so significant that it would have affected the console cert process, so the developers didn't want to mess around with that. They've committed to making sure it is fully ready to go before launch, so stay tuned for a new release date because they haven't announced one yet. So what came out last week? Well, Square Enix's Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake did pretty well for itself, which is no surprise given how well 3 did last year. Mighty 85 an open critic for this one with glowing reviews all round. But worth highlighting this more measured take from GameSpot, who gave it a 7 out of 10 and concluded, quote, "Ultimately, my feelings towards Dragon Quest 1 plus 2 HD 2D remake boiled down to, would I recommend it over Dragon Quest 3 HD or Dragon Quest 11? Well, no. Both of those games are far better experiences for both new and old Dragon Quest fans. There's some good times to be had, especially with Dragon Quest 2, but the games don't quite stack up compared with other recent Dragon Quests, even with all the new bells and whistles," end quote. There's something in that for a series of games that will demand 60 hours plus from you a piece. Best to start with a bang. Mortal Kombat Legacy, which is Digital Eclipse's newest interactive documentary collection, has also fared pretty well among critics with a mighty 84 on OpenCritic. And that's unsurprising if you've checked out any of the previous collections they've put out, but that's not quite the whole story, unfortunately. The fighting game community has taken a lot of issue with input lag for the collected games, which exists for all versions, but it's worst on the PlayStation versions and least worst on Steam. But even so, on Steam, the user reviews are sitting at a mixed 45% with almost 600 reviews counted. Some of those negative reviews are referencing the input lag, but others are having issues with matchmaking, which the developers say they're working on. A rare fumble from this team, who usually have a pretty strong track record, but then again, fighting games are a very different beast from Digital Eclipse's usual wheelhouse. We had some rumblings about some missteps in Football Manager 26, and it kind of seems like it's played out that way in reviews. On OpenCritic, it's sitting at a fair 73, with many of the critics recognizing the potential and new additions. The new user interface seems to be a resounding failure. Hopefully the spreadsheet heads can expect some updates to this one pretty soon. Europa Universalis 5 is the game we described as one of Paradox's Hail Mary plays last week, and it looks like they've clinched this one, at least as far as critics are concerned. Paradox's vocal fanbase though, we'll have to wait and see on that one. On OpenCritic, it's sitting at a mighty 87, which is a very good place to be. PC Gamer hit the nail on the head here by awarding it an 87 out of 100, saying, quote, "This is Paradox's best suite of interlocking core game mechanics since Hearts of Iron 4. Europa Universalis 5 has mechanics so complex and multi-layered that any attempt at a casual description or concise critical observation threatens to get lost in the weeds of exceptions when it comes to, for example, population dynamics versus taxation control. It's definitively a new era of strategy game design, one where such detailed systems are in play that anything but an extensive discussion of each mechanic will miss some nuance, drawback, benefit, or connection to another part of the whole," end quote. Damn, that's a pretty good endorsement. Finally, we've got Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which also dropped this week, and if you've followed any of these Dynasty Warriors spin-off games, and the reception here is probably no surprise to you, sitting at a strong 80 on OpenCritic, with a mix of genre fans noting it as a high point, with non-fans once again noticing, hey, this game's really repetitive, so your mileage may vary. Here's GameSpot, who gave it a 7 out of 10 and flagged that if you're not really taken with this genre, then nothing here is going to change your mind, but concluded, quote, "Unique skills and sync strikes bring increased depth to its hack and slash histrionics, while elements of Tears of the Kingdom are smartly adapted to fit the Musou genre. The story doesn't feel essential enough to satisfy pure Zelda fans, but by ironing out its predecessor's performance issues and introducing a varied roster of rewarding characters, Age of Imprisonment marks a high point for the spin-off series thus far," end quote. So what's going out this week? Well, last week sure lured us into a false sense of security regarding the quantity of releases after Broketober, because we are back to an absolutely stacked week, and Call of Duty isn't even out yet. That's seemingly because a ton of the promising indies of the year saw this specific week as the time to get in before the Madden of first-person shooters arrived. But on the plus side, the diversity of new stuff here is really good. Something for everyone, really. Kicking things off on Friday, November 7th is a VR optional music action game, and weirdly, it's not the only VR optional music action game releasing this week. But we're talking about Thrasher first, which is the sequel to the excellent rhythm violence game Thumper, which came out back in 2016. This title is a bit more free-flowing in its gameplay, but no less hardcore and ominous in its whole vibe and visuals. Thrasher was originally released in 2023 for Quest and Apple Vision Pro, but now it seems like they're finally free of any exclusive exclusivity contracts, and it's arriving on Steam where you can play it with any headset your heart desires. Tuesday, November 11th brings a very promising 4-pack of indies, starting with Heart Machine's platform action game Possessors. We've been looking forward to this one since it got revealed, as we're big fans of their debut Hyperlight Drifter, but of course there's every reason to be more skeptical now given how their Hyperlight Breaker early access thing went down, and now there's the latest round of preemptive layoffs that the studio has made, which we covered during the top half of the show. Still, you'd think that because Devolver Digital picked this one up, they saw something special in it, and as we went through earlier, the laid-off developers are still proud of this thing and they're still encouraging people to pick it up, so it's there if you want it. We'll check back in on the reviews next week. If you'd like to do some possessing of a different kind, joining that one on Tuesday is a game called Goodnight Universe, where you experience the world through the eyes of a 6-month-old baby with psychic powers. It's part family drama, part thriller, as a shady organization tries to steal you away to conduct experiments. Oh, and also, the baby is played by Lewis Pullman, like the guy who played Bob in Top Gun Maverick, and the guy who played Bob in Thunderbolts. This comes from the creators of a game called Before Your Eyes, which is a very cool first-person narrative game where you played with your eyes using a webcam. Every time you blinked, the story jumped ahead. You can control this game with your eyes as well, but there are traditional controls too. Ed played through a preview of this one, and it comes very highly recommended. And it's also already picked up awards at festivals like Tribeca and South by Southwest Sydney as well. PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch 2 for this one. Rue Valley is one of the many games following in the footsteps of Disco Elysium, an RPG revolving around the psyche of a man stuck in a time loop. But the difference with this one is that it's one of the only games in the disco style that actually has an official seal of approval from the lead creative team of the original Disco Elysium, Robert Kurvitz, Alexander Rostov, and Helen Hinper. That's quite a testimonial, and based on the short demo we've played a while back, it certainly looks really promising. Stu's been diving into this one a bit more deeply for us, so do look forward to his review, which will go up on the website in the future. Last one for Tuesday is another VR optional music action game, Luminous Arise. This of course comes from Enhance, the studio who did Tetris Effect, founded by Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who did games like Rez, Space Channel 5, and of course the original Luminous. This one takes all the encompassing sensory assault of Tetris Effect, applies it to the square matchmaking gameplay of Luminous, and yeah, it's absolutely fucking awesome, as expected, at least based on the demo we played a little while ago. It's coming out on PS5 and Steam, and trust us, if you have the means of playing in VR, we recommend it. Coming out next week on Thursday, November 13th, is yet another big strategy game, if you can believe it, this time from Ubisoft, who sometimes remember that they have some big properties in the genre. Anno 117 Pax Romana is the latest in the historical management series, which are primarily focused on economic simulation, but have other elements too. This one's going to be set in Rome, if you couldn't already tell by the subtitle, and it'll be available for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles. Also out next Thursday is Inazuma 11 Victory Road, which is hitting all platforms. It's a soccer-themed RPG from the very well-regarded Japanese studio Level 5. Like a lot of their most recent games, this one has been delayed several times. If the very successful release of Fantasy Life I earlier this year is any indication, those delays might work out very well for them in the long run. Now, I already talked about 2 really cool-looking VR games this week, which is a rare occurrence for us, we'll admit. So I thought we'd just go all the way and do a third. So put this on your radar. This is a game called Hotel Infinity, and while it kind of looks like a pretty simple VR escape room kind of dealio at first, things get more interesting when you realize it's set in a reality and physics-defying building with all sorts of portals and tricks to mess with your perspective, and it's also designed to try to subvert your expectations in making you think you're physically wandering around a huge mansion of a building while only requiring a relatively small space to move around in. Choosing between emptying a room in your house purely for the purposes of using VR or relegating yourself to using unnatural movement mechanics has always been kind of a hurdle in selling the whole VR experience, but if Hotel Infinity can solve that with its level design, it could potentially be pretty great. The other thing that got us interested in this one is the fact that the lead creative behind the game also made a really cool MC Escher inspired environmental puzzle game called Manifold Garden a few years ago, which was absolutely stunning to look at and did some really neat things with perspective and creating an absolutely massive and imposing sense of space. Hopefully this one carries some of that juice over. It's coming to MetaQuest and PSVR 2 on November 13th this year, so if you're planning on digging out your headset for Thrasher and Luminous this week, then maybe keep this one in mind too. Hotel Infinity isn't on Steam just yet, but I'll leave a link to its website below. Our feel-good story for the week is a real thing, I swear to God, okay? Clive Rosfield, aka Verso, aka Ben Starr, aka friend of the channel, aka one of the best voice actors working today, he has a bit of a silly side. You'd know it if you follow him on social media, and if you missed it, then you would have been very surprised to see him dressed up as the Balatro clown Jimbo at the BAFTAs so he could accept the award on behalf of the incognito developer, Local Thunk. Turns out Ben Starr enjoyed being in that getup a little more than we thought, because this week he announced a special calendar featuring him as Jimbo in various poses and situations. Christmas Jimbo? Sure. Baseball Jimbo? Absolutely. Creepy vampire Jimbo. I don't know, man. That American Beauty poster, but with bananas? Now we're talking. But Jimbo, I think we all would have liked to have seen just a little bit of powdered white skin on that shot. All proceeds for this calendar go to the charities Extra Life and Special Effects, so it's not just great decor, it's also great karma. If you want to grab one, I'll leave a link to it below the like button. All right, ladies and gents, that is the video for the week. Do please drop it a like if you enjoyed yourself, as that always does wonders for helping the video travel far and wide. Be sure to subscribe and ding the notification bell for more videos, and to get even more coverage that is 100% ad-free, sign up over at thisweekinvideogames.com as either a free member or a paid supporter. We think you'll enjoy yourself over there. My Outer Worlds 2 review is done, and it's going up on the channel over the weekend. In the background, I'm working on some smaller reviews in addition to getting stuck into Arc Raiders. Plus, I'm still tinkering around with the Asus ROG Xbox Ally X. I'm not even sure if that's the correct name. I just say words and hope that it is correct at this point when it comes to the name of that product. I got no idea. So anyway, do look forward to some thoughts on that later in the month. That is all I got for now though. Thanks for watching, and a big thanks to this video sponsor, Surfshark. For years now, I've been using this video sponsor, Surfshark VPN, and honestly, it comes in clutch pretty often. I mean, we all know about content geo-blocking, where certain TV shows, films, and games are inaccessible to you based on where you are. Surfshark lets you sidestep many of those restrictions with a click of a button, virtually teleporting you all over the world so you can watch or play whatever you please. But there's also the online shopping angle too. I mean, regional pricing is a thing, and depending on what you're buying and where it's being shipped to, certain online retailers won't let you make purchases depending on where you're located. Again, Surfshark lets you quickly and easily get around many of those restrictions so you can buy what you like and get a good deal while doing it. Of course, there's also the security angle. Surfshark encrypts your data, making it safer to browse the web, and their dedicated antivirus or alert tools take security to a whole new level, protecting you from viruses or malware and notifying you if a large-scale hack occurs that may leave your data exposed. It's super convenient since Surfshark can be used on a range of devices from PCs to phones to tablets and more, and their intuitive user interface makes it so easy to use. Sometimes it's as little as one click and you're away. I love it. I would never not have it installed on all my devices, and if you want to check it out for yourself, you can visit surfshark.com/skillup, and if you use offer code SKILLUP at checkout, you'll get an extra 4 months when you sign up. A great deal for a great product. That's surfshark.com/skillup. Offer code SKILLUP at checkout for an extra 4 months. Thanks Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.